Every single day we're just bombarded with ads. But what if the most powerful ones, the most persuasive ones, are the ads you never actually see? We're talking about messages that are literally designed to slip right past your conscious mind and influence what you buy, what you do, what you think. Today we're diving into that hidden world of persuasion, and it all kicks off with one single legendary story.
All right, so let's start with probably the most famous story in the history of advertising. Seriously, this tale was so powerful, it started a nationwide panic about mind control. And chances are, you've probably heard some version of it yourself. These are the words right here. This is the phrase. The story goes that back in the 1950s, these words were flashed on movie screens for just a fraction of a second. Way too fast to consciously read, to thousands of unsuspecting people. The goal? Well, the goal was to plant a suggestion, a craving, right into their subconscious. The question is, did it actually happen?
So here's how the whole legend unfolded. In 1957, this researcher, James Vickery, makes this absolutely wild claim. And almost overnight, it causes a full-blown panic. You've got books like The Hidden Persuaders flying off the shelves, fueling this massive fear of corporate mind control. But then, just 5 years later, the truth comes out. Vickery admits the whole thing was a hoax. A total gimmick he made up to get more clients. The data? Yeah, it was completely fabricated.
And this is where the story gets really interesting. Because while the entire country was terrified of these invisible phantom messages, advertisers were already busy mastering techniques that were way more effective. And the craziest part? They were hiding in plain sight the whole time.
So, with that in mind, let's shift our focus away from the myth of subliminal ads and toward the reality of something called deceptive advertising. Now, this is the kind of persuasion that isn't invisible at all. It's just really, really misleading.
Okay, so this is the absolute key distinction we have to make. Deceptive ads are lies you can actually see and hear. False promises, bogus claims, stuff like that. The lie is right there. Subliminal ads, on the other hand, are messages you supposedly can't see, designed to completely bypass your conscious brain. You could say one is a trick and the other is a ghost.
This is a perfect example of deception hiding right out in the open. I mean, we've all seen signs just like this one, right? But what if that clearance or final sale just never ends? Get this. In one real case, the Attorney General went after a retailer for running a so-called final sale for 27 weeks straight. That sense of urgency they created? It was totally fake.
And here's another one you will see absolutely everywhere. It's called price anchoring. By showing you a super high, maybe even inflated, retail value right next to their price, companies make it seem like you're getting an amazing deal. That original price acts as an anchor in your brain, warping your perception of value, even if almost nobody ever actually paid that price.
Okay, so we've established that the deception you can see is a very real problem. But let's circle back to that original idea for a second, the idea of a truly subliminal message. Could they actually exist? And if so, how in the world would they even work?
Okay, I want you to take a really close look at this illustration. It's a classic example from psychological research. Just let your eyes scan it for a moment. What's the first thing that jumps out at you?
Now, at first glance, something like 90% of people see a pretty straightforward scene. You got some flowers, maybe some bees, leaves, just a general outdoor vibe. It's kind of stylized, sure, but it seems simple enough. But there is a hidden layer here.
And there it is. See it now? If you look at the negative space, the background between the objects, you can see the letters S-E-X woven right into the design. The theory is that your brain processes this word, this powerful concept, even if you never consciously notice it's there. So how does this trick work? Well, it relies on a cool psychological principle called the figure ground illusion. Basically, our brain is hardwired to focus on the main figure, in this case, the flowers and bees, and to treat everything else as just the ground or the background. By hiding a message in that ground, it can slip right past our conscious filter.
So we know these techniques are out there, both the obvious tricks and the maybe not so obvious subliminal ones. But what's the real impact here? Are they just a clever marketing gimmick, or are we talking about something that genuinely destroys the trust between a company and its customers?
So how do people actually feel when they learn about this stuff? Well, a study set out to answer that exact question. They asked people for their real gut reactions to the idea of subliminal ads, and, as you can probably guess, the feedback was not exactly glowing.
I mean, just listen to what people said. They called it unethical and a cheap trick. They compared it to a pushy salesman. But this one phrase, this one really stands out to me. Whispering with their minds. Wow, that perfectly captures that deep, creepy feeling of being manipulated without even knowing it.
And that brings us to the bottom line here. The research makes it pretty clear. Whether these hidden messages are scientifically proven to work, it almost doesn't matter. Just the perception that a company might be using them is enough to completely destroy trust. It becomes an absolute value destroyer.
So all of this naturally leads us to a much more constructive question, right? If these manipulative tricks are basically a dead end for building any real customer loyalty, then what's the alternative? What's a better way for businesses to be both successful and ethical?
The research points toward an ethical framework called value-driven management. And the core idea is actually pretty simple, but it's powerful. Instead of chasing short-term wins with sneaky tactics, the focus shifts to creating genuine, long-term value for everyone involved. That means your customers, your employees, and even society as a whole.
And so that leaves us with this final thought. We know these techniques exist. We know how they can make us feel. So as we all try to navigate this world that's just saturated with messages trying to get our attention, the question really becomes a personal one. Where do we, as consumers, as people, draw that critical line between fair persuasion and unethical manipulation?